Hey. Oh, very good.
Commanders, bring your units to attention and present arms for the Mayor of Somerville.
Detail and hoot! Present hoot!
Commanders, bring your units to order arms and parade rest and pay attention to the podium.
Order hoot! Parade rest!
Good morning, Somerville. Thank you all for being here on this New Year's Day. My name is Ben Ewan-Campen. I'm the Ward 3 Alderman, and I am honored to introduce to you the members of the 2018 Board of Aldermen. Ward 2 Alderman J.T. Scott, Alderman-at-Large Mary Jo Rossetti, Alderman of Ward 5 Mark Niedergang, Ward 4 Alderman Jesse Klingen, Alderman-at-Large Will Mba, former Ward 3 Alderman Bob McWaters, Alderman-at-Large Stephanie Hirsch, and the Mayor of Somerville, Joe Curtatone. Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask Mimi Graney to come forward for the invocation. So this is from a poem that Maya Angelou composed for Bill Clinton's inauguration, which felt very apropos for New Year's Day. And it really calls to us to think about our day today in a brighter historical context, and to look at how we can both have that understanding of ourselves over time, but also encourage us to respond to the particular needs of today. So this is an excerpt from that poem. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, and if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands, mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps for change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes, into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Joe Curtatone. I have the honor and privilege of being the mayor of Somerville. J. Brandon Wilson, the executive director of the Historic Preservation Commission, and the members of the commission, Captain Tom Coots of the Charlestown Militia, Colonel Richard Shirker, the Kentish Guards of the Rhode Island Militia, Lieutenant Colonel Paul O'Shaughnessy from His Majesty's 10th Regiment of Foot, King George's delegate. Everybody's welcome in Somerville. And Colonel Lawrence Wilworth. Welcome to Prospect Hill. You may be seated. I am thinking about my remarks for today, and as mayor, this is the 15th time I've had an opportunity, well, not the first time in participating in these ceremonies, as I've done for many years. The words resiliency this weekend come to my mind in light of the weather we've all endured and the resiliency we should be facing or taking on in the years to come. I think Mother Nature's reminded us of what's at stake here in this region and our communities this weekend. The resiliency of this community to continue to celebrate its historic and civic pride, postponing the January 1st event till today, but also embracing our historic past, and the members of this community, especially Brandon Wilson and the members of the Historic Preservation Commission, deserve a round of applause. Let's give it to them. But also the resiliency of the men and women who stood tall and fast on this hill centuries ago to take on an organized army, a disorganized ragtag group of farmers, colonialists, people who fought for equity and inclusion, even in those years, stood fast and were resilient, never backed down as they fought for their community and their country's values. That's a lesson that Somerville has not forgotten. It's a torch we continue to carry along with so many in our country today, notwithstanding the years of struggle for equality, inclusion, tolerance, compassion, and more civil society. Somerville is that beacon today, and it's the lessons taught right here on this hill that I, for one, take with me, and we take with all of us. Somerville is fighting every day to be that beacon for equity and inclusion for immigrants and newcomers who come to our community, that this city is still a welcome and sanctuary city and will always be a sanctuary for them. For women, for the LGBT community, for science. And we see that fight for equity and inclusion and for tolerance and compassion and leadership in our youth in the city, as we saw our Somerville High School students march and protest on Wednesday in honor of those fallen in Parkland. And that their thoughts, their hopes, their dreams are included in this country's future. So, to those colonialists who braved weather with more resiliency than we even do today, for those who braved really unconquerable odds and taking on an empire, we thank them. We thank them for their lessons. We thank them for their inspiration, and we will continue that fight for equity and inclusion and be the standard bearer for the rest of the country. Thank you. God bless the United States, and God bless Somerville.
Good morning, all, and what a wonderful day we have. I want to let you take a moment to look in your programs at the images that are in there, just to give you a sense of how different it is today than what it was then, and how lucky we are that the weather is cooperating right now. I also want to bring to your attention, as the head of the Historic Preservation Commission, a couple of historical details. One is at the front of the program. We have a cover that we've had maintained for all the 15 years that the mayor has mentioned, and then before, which was done by Fred Lund, and that's so his spirit stays alive here as part of this event, as he was one of the original people that has been here for 30-odd years, actually helping to make this ceremony happen. And secondly, I want you to notice my cape today is here for the spirit of Isabel Cheney. So for those of you that have been in Somerville for many, many years, I think you'll remember Fred and Isabel were the ones that snow, sleet, wind, gales was out here celebrating on January 1st. Today, we are very lucky. I also want to note that there's a poem in the inside part of your cover that we are not actually reading, but it's a memorable one written by a local resident who is rather well known here as a poet, Sam Walter Foss. So at your leisure, I hope you'll have a chance to read it. And I also want to give some extra thanks today to Lawrence Wilworth, who is the quartermaster you'll hear speaking shortly, for bringing all of the militia here today that he has. Each year, if you have not noticed, it's been growing, and it's wonderful to see all the different militia troops that are here from various parts of Massachusetts and New England. So thank you once again, everybody. I now have the pleasure of introducing one of those people that's going to start off the ceremony today, and this is Captain Tom Coots, and he is the commander of the Charlestown Militia. He will be speaking today, but there are also representing from the Massachusetts Militia today, representatives from the Glover's Marblehead Regiment, where Captain Seamus Day is the commander, and also the Bedford Militia, Captain Jim Ringwood commanding. With the Glover's Marblehead Regiment, just raise your hand so people know where you are. One of them is a drummer today, so thank you for pitch hitting today. And then for the Bedford Militia, can you actually raise your hands? Again, fife and drum player today, so thank you so much. So now I'm going to ask Tom Coots, Captain Tom Coots, to come forth, please.
Good morning. This is one of the more enjoyable first flags that I've been to. When they said they were moving it to May, I thought we'll all be in short sleeves, but not yet. On behalf of the officers and men of the Charlestown Militia Company of Thomas Gardner's Regiment, I wish to extend greetings to everyone who's here today. We come here today not to just celebrate and commemorate the raising of the first flag of the United Colonies, but to honor the men and the events that led to this great occasion. The reason for this glorious event began late in the evening of April 18th, 1775, when a military expedition left Boston to search for stores of arms and ammunition in Concord. During that night and early into the next morning of April 19th, close to 30 riders left Charlestown and the surrounding communities to sound the alarm throughout the countryside. By the end of that day, nearly 20,000 militia had responded to the call, and the first shots of the American Revolution had been fired. The British Army had occupied Boston, but they needed to take possession of Dorchester Heights and Bunker Hill if they wished to maintain their control. In June, Artemus Ward, the general and commander of the Massachusetts Army, ordered Colonel William Prescott to fortify Charlestown Heights. With a group of 1,200 men armed with shovels and picks, they marched from Cambridge Common to Charlestown. During the night of June 16th, these men built a redoubt on the lower of the two hills, known as Breed's Hill. By the afternoon of June 17th of 1775, 2,300 trained British troops were advancing against a group of tired, worn, and experienced militia. The British would be unsuccessful in their first two attempts on the hill. Among those who fought on the hill were 45 men from Charlestown Militia, who were assigned to Colonel Thomas Gardner's regiment. These men were not in the redoubt as the rest were, but instead were along the rail fence where the fiercest of fighting took place. During the third and final assault on the hill, the Charlestown men covered the retreat of the units as they left from Breed's Hill to the higher and more fortified ground of Bunker Hill. They fought until the last man was removed from the hill. This great feat earned them the title of last to leave the hill. During the third and final assault, Colonel Thomas Gardner was mortally wounded. Colonel Gardner succumbed to his wounds and was buried on July 3rd, 1775. The newly appointed Commander-in-Chief, General George Washington, who is now Commander of the Continental Army, presided over his funeral. The Charlestown men of Gardner's regiment were then assigned to General Nathaniel Greene's command and were present here on Prospect Hill, Charlestown, on January 1st, 1776. They were witness to the raising of the first truly American flag. And today, 242 years later, the members of Gardner's regiment proudly participate in this ceremony today. Thank you.
and we're delighted to have you here today. Thank you. I'd now like to have the pleasure of introducing somebody who will be representing the Rhode Island Militia, and that would be Colonel Richard Tricka. He is the former commander of the Kentish Guards. And also representing the Rhode Island Militia today, but not speaking, is Colonel Ron Barnes, who's the commander of the Pawtucket Rangers, and Colonel Robert Enbach, the former commander of the Newport Artillery Company. Could you folks please raise your hands so that they know? Thank you.
As a member of the Kentish Guards, General Nathaniel Greene's home unit, and on behalf of the Rhode Islanders stationed in this newly reconstituted Continental Army in 1776, I'd like to thank you for joining our some commemorations of this local but very significant national event. We're here to celebrate this Continental Army's rebirth and the first raising before this Army of the first flag representing the United Colonies flag, or the Grand Union flag, approved by the Second Continental Congress on November 1775 to symbolize the united purpose of all the colonies in defending our lives, liberties, and rights. We have representatives here from two Rhode Island militia organizations. The Rhode Island Militia, unlike Massachusetts, which was oppressed by a royal governor, in fact, Lexington Concord, was an attempt to capture their leaders, seize their weapons and ammunition. Rhode Island was blessed with a locally elected government. Our militia companies could train, and because we were very good at smuggling, we were fairly wealthy. So our militia companies were well endowed, well trained, uniformed. You'll notice Colonel Barnes' uniform of the Pawtucket Rangers, which is a red coat. It wasn't because we were patriots, it's because we wanted the best military equipment you could get. And what was that? Standard British Army equipment. So we had bright scarlet coats, even though we're all very, very, very patriots. Shortly after the Battle of Bunker Hill, Brigadier Nathaniel Greene arrived at Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it was now the commander of 3 regiments of the Rhode Island Army of Observation, raised by Rhode Island's colonial legislature from parts of the Rhode Island Militia. Again, our militia was well trained. For example, the commander of the Kentish Guards, James Mitchell Varnum, became commander of one of these 3 regiments, and 35 members of the Kentish Guards became officers in the Continental Army. General George Washington took command of the fledgling Continental Army on July 3rd, 1775. He wrote that but here there was insubordination, with the militia over-imbued with the spirit of liberty. But then when he visited the camp of the Rhode Island regiments, he noted that here there was order and discipline down to the tent pegs. He placed Brigadier General Nathaniel Greene in charge of Prospect Hill, the key position in the American line, with 4,000 men, including the Rhode Island regiments, and Gardner's regiments and other local militia. Prospect Hill and Winter Hill sectors of the American line were key to the major military actions under George Washington. Nathaniel Greene commanding Prospect Hill and General Sullivan commanding Winter Hill directed military activity at Mount Benedict, Cobble Hill, and Leechmere. General Greene was instrumental in turning the ill-trained, ill-disciplined militia units into an effective Continental Army fighting force. Under General George Washington leadership, on Monday, December 1st, 1776, the Continental Army was revived by the reenlistment of a majority of its members. The raising of our first flag, the Grand Union flag, here on Prospect Hill before the Continental Army, in the face of the British Army and under the watchful guardianship of General Greene's men, symbolize our continuing and united resolve to be free and independent. Thank you.
Thank you for a rousing, patriotic oratory about our history. This is very helpful. I now have the pleasure of introducing the next guest, which will be equally rousing, I suspect, which is the British forces. And they will be represented today as a speaker with Colonel Paul O'Shaughnessy, who is representing His Majesty, the 10th Regiment of Foot. And I'm sure he will have something more to say in response. Thank you.
Thank you all. I just brought along a little protection. Just in case. It's a tough crowd. I thank you, Mr. Washington, for this opportunity to provide an opposing viewpoint. Fair and balanced. I have here, Mr. Washington, a proclamation by His Majesty. You remember His Majesty, don't you? Yes. In which all citizens are urged to make known all treasons and traitorous conspiracies which shall be known against our person, crown, and dignity. You wouldn't know of any, would you?
Actually, I do, sir.
Oh, you do? We'll have to talk. I have a copy of this just in case you haven't read it.
They happen to be in Parliament, sir.
Ah, yes. Parliament. I hear talk of a flag. You have a flag. It is the Union Jack of Great Britain. It is the representation of all of the liberties already at your hand, from Magna Carta down to this day, although you people seem to have reduced it to a stick and a hat. But I have here a speech by His Majesty given to the Houses of Parliament on the 27th of October, 1775. And in it, I believe he sets forth, in the most gracious terms, a compelling argument for you to turn around and consider before this gets out of hand just what you're doing and where it will end up. Mr. Washington, please do be careful. By the way, how are the plantations?
Well, not so good these days, sir. You see, we've been inundated in taxes.
Ah,
And it's hard for any honest working man to make any kind of a profit, sir, with the money being taken out of our very pockets by this failed mercantile system, sir, that your parliament, and I say it used to be our parliament, but I didn't vote for them, did you? No. Oh, so it must be your parliament, sir.
Ah, so you want to have your own parliament that you can vote for. How's that going? Well, it's Mount Vernon, right?
Indeed, sir.
We'll have to stop by.
Indeed. Please sample the whiskey. I do a quite fine job on it.
Indeed. His Majesty speaks. My lords and gentlemen, those who have successfully labored to inflame my people in America by gross misrepresentations and to infuse into their minds a system of opinions repugnant to the true constitution of the colonies and to their subordinate relationship to Great Britain, I would remind you of that, now openly avow their revolt, hostility, and rebellion. They have raised troops. They are collecting a naval force. And importantly, they have seized the public revenue. Many of these people still retain their loyalty. Do you not, good people, retain your loyalty? I can feel the love. Yet the torrent of violence has been strong enough to compel their acquiescence till a sufficient force, here, shall appear to support them. The authors and promoters, that would be you, of this desperate conspiracy have meant only to amuse by vague expressions of attachment to the parent state and protestations of loyalty to me, whilst all the while preparing for a general revolt. On our part, the resolutions of Parliament breathe a spirit of moderation and forbearance. I have acted with the same temper, anxious to prevent the effusion of blood of my subjects and the calamities which are inseparable from a state of war, still hoping that my people in America would discern the traitorous views of their leaders. To be a subject of Great Britain, with all of its consequences, is to be the freest member of any civil society in the known world. Tyranny takes many forms, Mr. Washington.
Indeed. And who's his speechwriter?
I'll have to find out. He's quite good. The rebellious war now levied is become more general and is manifestly carried on for the purpose of establishing an independent empire. I need not dwell upon the fatal effects of such a plan. The object is too important, the spirit of the British nation too high, the resources with which God hath blessed her too numerous to give up so many colonies which she has planted with great industry, nursed with great tenderness, and encouraged with many commercial advantages, protected and defended at much expense of blood and treasure. When the unhappy and deluded multitude shall become sensible of their error, I shall be ready to receive the misled with tenderness and mercy. To remove as soon as possible the calamities which they suffer, I shall give authority to grant general or particular pardons and indemnities, and to receive the submission of any province or colony which shall be disposed to return to its allegiance as if such province or colony had never revolted. Now, who can argue with that?
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Well, Colonel O'Shaughnessy, I do believe I recall you from the French and Indian War.
Indeed you do. We fought together, sir.
We did indeed. Do you remember what happened when General Braddock forgot to take into account the local behavior, the local attitudes and minds?
It did not go well. I do remember that.
It did not indeed, sir. And so I can tell you that as a result, I do not believe that the King or the Parliament, by taking into account the local provinces and our attitudes and thoughts and how we feel. Sir, Parliament, who we did not elect, did not take into account our rights as free and independent Englishmen. It seems that Englishmen are all equal. However, some Englishmen are more equal than others.
But of course.
And so that is the aristocracy, sir.
Ah.
So you being Irish, do you not recall the Irish Dependency Act of 1721? Did not your parents tell you about that?
I do know about it, yes.
Indeed, and which that same Parliament and the King, their predecessors, took away the right of self-governance of the island of Ireland. Stripped away the lords of their land and replaced them with lackeys and hacks from London.
Now, sir, lackeys and hacks.
Indeed, sir.
I would say gentlemen.
Gentlemanly lackeys and hacks, yes, indeed. I will grant you that, sir. We are gentlemen after all. And so, as a result, I must say, when Parliament passed the Townshend Acts, as we know as the Intolerable Acts, that was the last straw. We understand we have to pay taxes. We have to ensure the peace and tranquility and defense. We understand that, sir. But when Parliament passes laws that invade our privacy as free as an independent citizens, that allow the quartering of British troops in people's private homes, that allows the invasion of our privacy, where the King's agents can walk into our studies and read our private correspondence, then, sir, Parliament and the King have gone too far.
Huzzah! Huzzah!
He does go on, doesn't he?
Yes, indeed. He King does. And so, sir, I ask you to take careful consideration as you enforce these laws. Do it with a thought of morality as well as letter of the law, because in the end, are we not all Englishmen?
Indeed, we are, sir, and I would remind you of that.
However, when a free people in these provinces are run over by the money mongers in Parliament who fix our economy and take the bread for the mouths of our children, we shall not stand for this, sir. I leave you to your king and your troops. You best go back to Boston, because I promise you, sir, you have not long to keep it.
Well, I thank you for that, and good luck with the little republic you have. I'm sure everything's going to be just fine. Oh, yes, I do have this for you. I'll get it to him. He needs to read the proclamation. Thank you all very, very much.
Company, into the fire line.
10 foot, handle, arm, shoulder, as you were. Rest your firelocks. Shoulder, firelocks. Right. Face. Front, quick, march.
Shoulder your firelocks.
Order your firelocks.
Order your firelocks.
Okay, now to continue with our history and to set the record straight and what happened thereafter, I have the pleasure to introduce my co-organizers today, who is representing the Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts. Also here today will be the Second Lieutenant Robert Emma, who is the officer in charge. But today speaking before us is Colonel Lawrence A. Wilworth, who is the commander of the troops and the quartermaster of artillery, of the Ancient and Honorable Artillery. And he is also responsible for bringing many of the people here today, the militia, so I'm sure he can be quite informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. I just wanted to say that this is the commemoration of Monday, January 1st, 2018, where the temperature was -5 and wind chill of -15 degrees below zero. So the program, considering the fact that it would have been unsafe to have children and everybody here, was rescheduled this date. But I wanted to let you know that a few hardy souls did go here on January 1st, did hold a commemoration and a bugle sounding on the flag, and we'll make sure, no matter what the weather, there will be an event scheduled on January 1st at noon, no matter what, depending on the weather. As we assemble here today to commemorate our history and heritage, the cold and winter conditions today is a reminder of the continual hardship and extreme conditions those brave soldiers of the American Revolution must have faced. More importantly, let us never forget the brave men and women of our military protecting our freedoms out in harm's way in similar or worse conditions without the benefit of comfort, home, or a hot meal. Over 242 years ago, in December 1775, the siege of Boston had gone on for 8 long months. Any clear outcome with the British was not in sight, and reconciliation with the king to date had been unsuccessful. The soldiers' morale was low. They wanted to go home. It was winter. Their enlistments were up December 31st, 1775. Under these conditions, how would it be possible to create a new Continental Army on Monday, January 1st, 1776, being reorganized in the midst of battle, facing over 8,000 armed British soldiers? On Monday, January 1st, 1776, General William Howe, commander of British forces in Boston, directed copies of King's Speech, which was referred to earlier, to Parliament, declaring the colonies in revolt and be distributed directly through the siege lines directly to each American soldier. We will not be intimidated. In direct response, General George Washington directed and requested the new national flag, the Great Union, now known as the Grand Union, that he was presenting to his staff, to be displayed at the visible highest point in the American lines, the fortifications on Prospect Hill. In addition, he directed the King's Speech, referred to earlier, to be publicly burned. The continual display of this flag confirms the successful reorganization of the Continental Army and the American determination to maintain their independent identity. By January 1776, the pessimism of a month before had changed into a firm resolve. The colonists, formerly angry British citizens, had been transformed to independent Americans. The Great Union flag, now known as the Grand Union, our national symbol, waves proudly to this day from Prospect Hill. The Continental Army was successfully reorganized from a militia army into a professional army. Most of the soldiers re-enlisted and decided to stay the course of the 8 long years of the Revolutionary War. Later in January 1776, under the leadership of Henry Knox and under severe winter conditions, 59 cannons and 60 tons of supplies captured at Fort Ticonderoga, 150 miles away, were dragged on sledges to Boston. The resulting sudden emplacement of these guns on Dorchester Heights in March, anniversary of this date, the 4th of March, 1776, forced a premature British evacuation of Boston and victory. This victory, the first major military victory of the Revolution, combined with the publication of Thomas Paine's Common Sense, made each citizen realize American independence was a possibility. The Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts, since 1638, has a proud tradition of supporting country and community. We are here today to honor its fellow members who were present in the Continental Army during the Siege of Boston and the American Revolution. In particular, we honor our members most likely present at the raising of the first United Colony flag. In particular, we honor General William Heath and Major William Dawes. General Heath, 92nd Captain Commanding, Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company, in 1771 was one of Washington's 6th Brigade commanders. Major Dawes was instrumental in spreading the alarm on 19 April 1775 and later fought in Bunker Hill. Thank you very much.
Thank you for setting the record straight. Okay, now I think it's time to have a little rousing participation by all of you, and I'd like to invite David Scott, a Somerville, Prospect Hill resident, to lead us with the coming song, which all of you, just so you know, is in your book, in case you could have forgotten the words in your program. David, by the way, is actually very well qualified for this beyond being a Prospect Hill resident. He is a professor at the Berklee School of Music.
Welcome. I'm going to need some help on this first song. This is Yankee Doodle, and please join in on the chorus. Sing as loudly as you can because it will help warm you up. Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Gooding, and there we see the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. And there we see 1,000 men as rich as Squire David, and what they wasted every day, I wish it had been saved. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. And there we see a swamping gun large as a log of maple, upon a deuced little cart, a load for father's cattle. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. And every time they shoot it off, it takes a horn of powder, and makes a noise like father's gun, only a nation louder. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. And there was Captain Washington and gentle folks about him. They say he's grown so tarnal proud he will not ride without them. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls one more time. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Give yourself some applause. All right. Next, we have on page 6 of your program. The text is there. Please join me. This is the Hammer Song by Pete Seeger and Lee Hayes. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, I'd ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out a warning, I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger, I'd sing out warning, I'd sing out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. Well, I've got a hammer, and I've got a bell, and I've got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice, it's the bell of freedom, it's the song about love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land.
Great job.
All right.
Good work.
Okay, we will now have the greetings from the Continental Congress delivered, and we have the pleasure of having a former alderman, very appropriately who will be doing this, Alderman Robert McWaters. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Prospect Hill. I am Bob McWaters, and I bring greetings from the Continental Congress. Today I travel to this event to show Congress support for General George Washington and the new Continental Army, to endorse the raising of the first United Colonies flag, the Great Union. This flag, forevermore, will symbolize the unity and purpose of the 13 United Colonies in the new Continental Army. Based on the recommendations of General Washington and Benjamin Franklin's committee, the Continental Army of the Continental Congress has directed the formation of a Continental Army of 26 regiments. We are highly pleased with the continual improvements of the Continental Army and the leadership demonstrated by General Washington. I am fully confident of its success in the future. Designed to be a new symbol of national identity, I hereby present this flag to you, General George Washington, to be displayed at the most visible point for all to see.
Commanders, bring your units to attention and present arms. Shuffled and flourished. Commanders, bring your units to order arms and parade rest.
Order. Parade rest. General.
Sir. And so, gathered here today, we are very grateful to the Continental Congress. For I dare say that, of course, our power, any power in this country, is derived not from somebody's parents or lineage, rather it's derived from the power of the people. And the Continental Congress, whom we elected, represents the power of the people, and to whose authority all of us, including myself, respect, honor, and obey, sir. As far as this proclamation goes, well, I dare say that probably before the end of this year, 1776, we will no longer be Englishmen, but rather free and independent Americans. Huzzah! Burn this!
King's speech detail forward. Put it in the ground.
Watch your eyebrows.
Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah! Hip hip! Huzzah!
Flag detail post.
Nothing personal, Colonel O'Shaughnessy. You're still welcome in Mount Vernon for a dram of whiskey. And so, I am General George Washington, commander of this Continental Army. On Monday, January 1st, 1776, we celebrated the formation of a new Continental Army. In recognition of this fact, and by the authority granted by the Second Continental Congress, I hereby direct that these Continental colors, henceforth called the Great Union Flag, be raised on the most visible position in the American lines on Prospect Hill. We affirm our resolve to be free and independent from Great Britain and bear witness to the public raising of this first United Colonies flag. In response to the King's speech, as you saw, it was publicly burned, as with any such condescending correspondences from our soon-to-be former government. I hereby direct that this flag be raised. On Prospect Hill, so it can be shown in clear view of the British encamped on Boston Common.
Left.
Thank you.
Hey. Firelock. Forward. Shoulder. Firelock.
Commanders, bring your units to attention and present arms.
Present arms.
Commanders, bring your units to order arm and parade rest and pay attention to the podium.
Order. Arms. Parade. Rest.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Commanders, bring your units to attention and parade rest. Concentration and present arms.
Company. Stand. Hut. Present arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Commanders, bring your units to order arms and parade rest.
Order. Arms. Parade. Rest. Firelock. Pay attention to the pose.
Before we depart today, let's have one more song. This is by one of the great American composers who was also an immigrant and a refugee, Irving Berlin. Please join me as we sing God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Charlestown Militia, render a salute to the new flag.
Company, to the right about. Face. Boys, your firelock. Make ready. Present. Okay. Fire. Shoulder your firelock.
Close and then I'll dismiss everybody. You all set?
Okay. Shoulder your firelocks to the right about face. Okay.
Okay, I just would like to thank everybody for being here today, and just a couple of last words to let you know that today we are sorry that we were not able to have a very special individual, a Somerville resident that was going to be here, which is Richard Johnson, and he has actually been deployed to Afghanistan in a very important mission, so he was not able to be here today. I also want to give hearty thanks to the DPW, who always do a wonderful job, regardless of the weather. Today we lucked out for all that they do in helping us set it up. And also to my compatriots at the historic Somerville, which are here today at the refreshment table, along with the Somerville Museum volunteers, who come every year and actually enable this all to happen and to have the refreshments for you. I also want to make sure that the police department knows that we very much appreciate them being part of the procession, getting us here safely, and making sure that everything goes according to plan up here at the hill. There are lots of people to thank, including the people that donated the food and the refreshments, but I ask you to look into your program for all those. And once again, I want to welcome and thank all of the militia who have come out today on a normal day off for them, not a holiday this time, for coming here and being part of our very historic occasion here in Somerville, Massachusetts. Thank you. I hope you'll all stay around and talk. There will be some pictures, and with George Washington's horse will be here for petting. Also, the mayor would like to invite everybody, if you would like to, go up into the tower. We don't often open it up, ever, during the winter, except for the flag raising, and today is no exception. So if you would like to go up, you may do that. There needs to be an orderly line, which I see is already formed. But the good news is that we now have a docent program that the Preservation Commission and Historic Somerville has started, where we have volunteers that are here twice a month to open up the tower here, also the Powder House over in the other end of the city, as well as the Milkrow Cemetery, so that people can go in and learn more about the significant history that Somerville has in the founding of our nation. Again, thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Also, the Post-19 Honor Guard, I hope knows that they are very much appreciated being here today and for their final salute. Again, God bless.
Thank you again. I want to personally thank all the volunteers that supported this effort, particular Sergeant Ward and Lieutenant Conrad and Robert Flynn and all the militia units here. Your participation makes this event memorable. Commanders, take your units to attention and dismiss them.
Take care to disperse.
Also notice that each year we ask people to come in period clothing, and I'm delighted this year that many people have, including every member of the Board of Aldermen that's here today. Thank you very much.
Wheel to the right. Right wheel.
Great to see you. Line them up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Yes, you're working. Thank you, Charlestown Militia. You want to wing it?